All right, good evening. Welcome to episode 2 of the Grognard Grumbles. I am joined again by my co-hosts Chase Green and Dave Ferguson. And our special guest tonight is the immortal Mike, the original Tron Rosso. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing good.
Yes, great. It's good to be back.
Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
And so tonight we got many topics to cover. We're going to talk about Edition Wars, the split in the D&D community. But anytime I have somebody new on the channel, I'd like them to tell their story, how they got into gaming, when they got into gaming, and anything else they want to tell us about themselves. So, Mike, you are our special guest tonight. How'd you get into gaming, and when was it?
Well, it was about 1980, 81. Prior to that, I had some odd parents that drugged me around all over the United States for the longest time. So I never got to have any long-term friendships up until about that time. So it was my mom who was always my friend, and I'd be in school for 3-4 months and we moved somewhere new. So I turned into an introvert just from circumstance. But my mother divorced my father and married a new guy, and we moved to Oklahoma in about 1980. And that was the first real time that I spent any length of time in a school and got to know some people. And this guy introduced me to the Moldvay version of D&D. And so we sat down and played it for a little bit. And he had a brother named Marty. And it was actually a couple of Martys in the initial group that ended up forming. But I got hooked. I mean, it hooked me so hard, and he saw that I fell in love with the game. That's why he gave me his copy of the 1978 green cover version of Tomb of Horrors, which I still have.
Awesome. You still have it, huh?
And I still have it, and it's in pretty good condition considering. And he also gave me a 20-sided die. It was one of the dark blue ones, and it's actually kind of small.
Yeah.
And I think that came with one of the original sets, but I don't remember for sure.
Very cool.
And it wasn't long after that I went to what was called a TG&Y. We used to nickname it Toys, Guns, and Yo-Yos, but it was just a store like a Target or something like that, or a Kmart. I bought Menser's basic red box version.
Oh, yeah.
For like $12, $13, something like that for the whole box, and sat down and read it, and I haven't looked back since.
That's your favorite version of D&D, I believe, right?
Yeah,
it
is.
And do you still currently play BECMI? Or do you?
Absolutely.
And did you ever move on to AD&D or anything else?
Oh yeah. I play a little bit of all of them. Yeah.
I understand you're also not just into D&D. You're kind of like me. You're kind of a hardcore gamer. You're into all kinds of stuff. What other kinds of games you play?
Yeah, you name it. I got bit pretty hard. I especially TSR. They were in the early 80s into the 90s. They came out with so many different systems. I played Gamma World, Boot Hill, Star Frontiers, Marvel Superheroes. I mean, anything. My Gangbusters.
Yeah.
And I still have all of them. All those that I bought all those years ago still sit on my shelf to this day. So, and I don't know. I even the war games. There was Harpoon by Tom Clancy, and
great game.
Some of the others, yeah. Avalon Hill had a bunch of great games that I played that I found out later were even came out before I even got started. It was like Wizards.
Oh yeah.
There was Privateers and Gentlemen, which was by Fantasy Games Unlimited.
Yeah.
That was actually a pretty early one too.
Yeah, we need to do an episode about Avalon Hill and the old board game war games.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people nowadays realize how much of an influence those games were on everything, because there's some really, really good games. Some of them are pretty complicated, but if you can get past that and just play it for what it is, they're very immersive, very fun.
Yeah.
Especially with the new board game resurgence in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah, I'd wonder if some of them would want to go back far enough. There was actually a war game that came out in the late 1800s that some of Tom Clancy's Harpoon. It was that one, and there was one that was made around World War I as well. And these were two war games made about naval warships and stuff.
Yeah,
and they're pretty primitive, but they're fun. I forget the names of them.
Well, Kriegspiel for one, the Prussians used to play it,
Mm-hmm.
which was kind of a free form war game, but it did use dice, but it was more And I think the military pretty much plays. They still kind of play a version of Kriegspiel. You know, they do basically the same kind of thing. It was just simulation of actual campaigns and tactics, and maneuvering of troops and all that sort of thing on maps and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, that's awesome. I understand too you were in the Navy. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was in only for a short time.
Yeah.
That's why when people come up to me sometimes, I'm wearing my hat and they'll thank me for my service, and I'm like, I just flew a desk, man. I passed out paperwork. That's about it. Nothing exciting for me. I got to see some exciting stuff, but I didn't really do a whole lot of anything. I was in the training, what they call the training department. Anybody need to go? See, everybody on the ship is mandatory to learn firefighting,
Right.
and that's because everybody has to help with fires on a ship because that's serious stuff.
What ship
So
were you
anybody
on?
went to any kind of training? USS Carl Vinson.
Yeah, okay.
It's a
Yeah.
big carrier.
Did you guys game when you were in the Navy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once I got out of boot camp and got to my first ship, I had my mom send me my D&D stuff, and that's exactly what we did when we had off time. So we never stopped.
That's awesome. Chase, Dave, did you guys ever play any of the old Avalon Hill games or GMT or any of that?
Not
Yeah.
the old ones, but there's some newer ones that have been coming out that I've played a little bit of.
No, the Avalon Hill games are kind of new to me. I want to say, didn't Outdoor Survival also come from Avalon Hill, or did I get that wrong?
It might have. I don't know. Mike, was that Avalon Hill?
Which game was it?
Outdoor Survival?
I don't remember that one.
I don't think it was.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't sound familiar.
I know all those, Gary and Dave. That's kind of how they met, was playing Avalon Hill games. And
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of how they got started. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And that's how Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax met, was through the General, which was Avalon Hill's little fan paper they used to pass around. And in the back, they would have a Gamers Wanted section, and Dave Arneson had a little thing back there. And that's how Dave Arneson met what's his name, Dave? Refresh my memory. The Bronstein guy, Dave Wesley. And then of course that's how they got introduced to Gary Gygax and his group. But yeah, that's a really important part of the history of our hobby, and I don't think a lot of people are aware how much of a impact it had.
And yeah, I was right. Outdoor Survival, that was Avalon
Also
Hill. So that was the original D&D map that was used for a little while. But I guess other than that, Axis and Allies, that's really the only, I think, Avalon Hill game I've ever played.
That's Milton Bradley.
Yeah, it was Milton Bradley. Yeah. Avalon Hill did a lot of famous games. Squad Leader.
Squadron Leader.
Yeah, Squad Leader, Panzer Leader, Africa Corps, Gettysburg. They did the old Dune game, actually. The original Dune game was Avalon Hill. They Wooden Ships, Iron Men, Jutland. I mean, it just went on and on and on. They just had a huge amount of games, even role playing games.
They had a number of revolutionary ones too.
Yeah, they had a lot of them.
Gettysburg.
Yeah. And they did that role. They kind of dabbled in role playing games for a while there. I believe they had Powers and Perils, and they had didn't they do the first Rune Quest as well? I believe.
I think so. I don't know. I didn't play that one.
Yeah, I think they originally produced Rune Quest, even though they never really took off in the role playing market. And to be honest, it was probably the role playing market that kind of killed them. I would assume. Because they kind of fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, they did.
About the time Wizards bought them too.
Yeah, Wizards bought the name, and I mean the name's still around, but it's not the same company anymore. But anyways, I didn't mean to ramble on about Avalon Hill, but so anyways, one of the topics of conversation I want to have tonight, it's something I've been thinking about a lot and talking a lot about with different gamers, is the edition wars. And it seems a lot of people are kind of forgetting how crazy it was back in the old year 2000, in the Y2K year, when the infamous 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons came out. I think we were all there for that. Um, and yeah, do you guys have any memories of when 3rd edition came out, and what was that like, and how crazy was it? Did you guys see any crazy divisions or splits in your group or in the community right off the bat? Because there definitely was later on, but I was just curious everybody's experiences when it first came out, because I feel like 3rd edition D&D was kind of when it started, right?
Well, I know in my experience, my group pretty much just jumped it straight into 3rd ed and didn't look
Right.
back.
Dave, Mike, what did you guys experience with 3rd edition when it first came out?
So yeah, my group was kind of the same as what Chase was saying. It took us a couple of years to make the switch because we were just playing AD&D 2nd edition at the time, and we just stuck with
Yeah.
what we knew, and it was just one of those slow moves. One of the guys who ran a lot of our games had moved over to 3rd ed in some of his side games, and then he introduced us and kind of like the main group to it, and he said like, hey, this is what I want to run. We're just going to convert our characters over and keep playing the same campaign. So we did, and honestly we didn't give two thoughts to it. It's just what he wanted to do, so we rolled with it.
Yeah, I kind of had it was pretty much a similar experience for me. Like, the group I was playing with, we were all playing AD&D 2nd edition, and we knew 3rd edition was coming out. We weren't like really excited about it, but we were, we were still talking about it. We saw it in Dragon Magazine and everything else. I believe they even I remember there being like advertisements in comic books and things like that. And so, I mean, there was some anticipation, but I can't say we were like really excited. And then I remember showing up one Friday night for the regular group to play our regular 2nd edition game. And the game master decided we were going to try out 3rd edition. He went out and bought the 3rd edition books that week it came out. And so we all sat down. It took us forever to make characters because it was so radically different from AD&D. We were just thoroughly confused, and I don't remember us hating it, but we were just kind of like, okay, we don't really. It was just so foreign to us. We didn't really take to it right off the bat, and so the next week we were like, oh, we don't want to fucking play this 3rd edition. Let's just keep playing 2nd edition. That's what we did, and I don't think we really moved into it until it probably took us another year or so to give it another try, and even then, I don't think it really became I didn't regularly play 3rd edition until high school. And
Which is when you jumped in with
right,
our
yeah,
group.
I actually that's when I met Chase, and I started gaming with their group, and they were playing 3rd edition, so I just fell in line and played 3rd edition with those guys, and but one thing about it I noticed was I didn't notice it right off the bat, but it seemed like a year or so later, there was just this, I mean, rabid hatred for 3rd edition, and it really created this chasm, this split, massive split in the D&D community. If you went onto any of the forums, any of the chat rooms or anything back then, it was just this massive. I mean, it was just like this massive hatred. I had never seen that before in a gaming community.
I think part of that's also, at that time, it was getting a lot easier to get online, and giving a year, that's enough time for people to actually test it out, to actually form their opinions on it.
Mike, did you ever jump on board 3rd edition, or did you guys like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep playing BECMI or AD&D or whatever.
I did look into it.
Yeah.
I play BECMI and both 1st and 2nd editions, and when I went and bought the 3rd edition book, and I didn't feel the rules were too dissimilar from D&D, the original stuff, but I felt it's like they tacked on a bunch of optional extra stuff that kind of clouded things. I mean, it made things really difficult at a table. I mean, the DM's already got a lot of, to do as already on the table.
Right.
And it just felt like they were adding more. It's like, here, now you got feats, now you get all these skills, now you get your skills. And it got to the point where it in BECMI, I can have a character made and ready to go in 15, 20 minutes and play in 5 minutes after that.
Oh, absolutely.
And with third edition, it was like it was taking almost 2 hours to make a character in some cases. And it's because you got all these extra options on top of it. And the extra feats and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you're playing the game, the combat was kind of drugged down a little bit because you had so much extra on there. And it's not that, because I like games like Rollmaster as well.
Yeah.
So it's not that I don't mind the complication of adding that in there. Plus, coming from playing a lot of war games,
right,
those kind of games can get very complicated.
Absolutely.
So, but they didn't have a smooth transition for it either.
Mm-mm.
And they had gone so far from second edition in a lot of ways with all these extra rules that it didn't. I think it turned off a lot of these people, and I think that's what it was. It was almost like like somebody slapped your child or something like that, and everybody was just attacking. For this, and that's not what was going on. These were just new people. I think it was Dwayne that told me that there was still the old TSR people that were from before were still there. They helped create third edition.
Oh, they did.
So it's not like you're too far removed there.
Yeah, there were 5 guys that are involved. 5th edition. There were actually 4 on the development team, but Peter Atkinson, who owned Wizards of the Coast, he was a massive D&D fan, and when he got the chance to buy TSR, he bought TSR obviously solely just to get the D&D license. And right off the bat, he said, "I want to recreate D&D," and he kind of handpicked a team to do it. But oddly enough, even though he was the CEO, he got directly involved. Which is really weird, but so he had a lot of input into that, and you did have 2 guys on the team that were old TSR guys, Skip Williams, and I'm trying to think of the other one. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, but you also had Monty Cook, and you had Jonathan Tweet, and Jonathan Tweet was kind of the outsider. I don't know if he worked for TSR previously. I think he was a freelancer and he moved into Wizards of the Coast. But he was always kind of left field, and he was definitely an outsider. And they did an interview with him recently, talking about 3rd edition. It was really interesting to hear his input and what went on and everything. But yeah, so there were a couple guys, because the TSR group, most of them, like I think it was like 75% of the old TSR team went over to Wizards of the Coast initially. Now, how many of those are left around? I doubt any of them are left. But yeah, that's one thing about 3rd edition. I think that's where the split came from. It was just so foreign and so different. But I'll give my 2 cents on that. So I think there was a lot of bad about 3rd edition, and we'll go into the positives and negatives about that. And I'm focusing on 3rd edition because I feel like this is the root of like the problem in the D&D community split that's happened. I think this is the source. I think everybody would agree with me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that's why I'm focusing so hard on 3rd edition, and we'll move on to 4th edition, because I think there was even more of a split with 4th. But I think it started. I think the root started in 3rd edition. That's where I saw it at. That's where the edition wars started, because I didn't see that with the 2nd edition and like the 1st edition guys. There wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't. Like, there were a lot of 1st edition guys that never moved on to 2nd edition.
But they didn't hate it either.
Yeah, they didn't hate it. And, they used, they would still buy the 2nd edition material, even if they didn't play 2nd edition, because it was totally compatible.
Because they were very compatible.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't much different 1st and 2nd in a lot of ways. I think 2nd did it better with a lot of the extra stuff. They put it into, those optional player and optional combat books that they put out there that you could just pick and choose what you liked and what you didn't like, you just didn't use. And I think that helped a lot of it.
Yeah.
That in second edition, oh my God, all the splat books. They had a guidebook or a handbook for just about everything out there.
Yeah, I think third edition probably took the cake on that, but man, second edition
yeah.
did have a shit ton of splat books. And
Not that I have a problem with
Yes.
it though. I like a lot of source material like that because I mean, even third edition stuff, I can dig through it and I can find stuff that I can use even in my BECMI games. So I don't mind that.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean let's be real. I think the second edition source books, in my opinion, I think some of those there were a lot of stinkers in there, but there was a lot of really, really good ones, you know.
Oh yeah.
I think that was probably the golden era of like source books and campaign settings was second edition. Um,
Totally.
But yeah, back to third edition. Yeah, I think it's definitely was, you know, it's the root of the cause of why there's a split in the D&D community to begin with. And there were some positive and negative things about it. I think they had some good ideas, but I think they went a little too far with it. For example, like ascending armor class. I didn't really have a problem with that. And to be honest, you know, like my group, even when we were playing AD&D, we already were doing ascending armor class. We already did that way before, you know, the D20 system ever came out. So it wasn't a new concept to us. It was like, oh, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. What else you got?
The difference between the two is not that big a deal anyway. So I mean, that's an easy thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah, and I think it was a positive thing. It made more sense, and I mean, THAC0 is fine, and I have no problems with it, and it's not hard. But I think they thought it turned a lot of people off, and I could see why. But and you know, like consolidating the saving throws into just 3 saves, I think that was fine. I really didn't have a problem with that, even though you know it's a lot cooler to say, "Hey, make a saving throw versus death
Right.
spells," that it is.
Versus a
Yeah,
will
or
save.
you know, make a will save. You know, what sounds cooler here? But you know, I digress. But um, even so, I think that was a pretty decent change. Um, feats, I thought they got a little power gamey, and I think they went a little overboard on the feats, especially later on. And again,
Yeah, again, when you have 1,000 splat books for third edition that all have
Mhm.
feats in them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that went wrong is the biggest thing that went wrong with third edition is I think they put way too much paperwork on the dungeon master's end of the table. You know, it was way too much to keep up with. You know, every monster had like, you know, was fully statted out with skills and attributes and feats and blah blah blah. And then you also on top of that, you got to keep up with your players who are, you know, have all this shit. And it became a real headache for a DM, you know. At least for me it did. I don't know I know everybody here's a DM, so do you guys feel that way about it?
Totally. It's just with all the skills and everything, especially for a flat 3.0 game and not a 3.5 game. Just trying to keep track of skills and bonuses, and then you throw in feats, and you really have to start limiting what you allow your players to use. That way, you know, you can't account for everything how it's going to mix and match with everything else that's going on at your table.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it kind of to go back to what Mike said is it's not that it was a complicated game because it wasn't that complicated. I like complicated games. Like I love Rollmaster. Hell, I like the most complicated games like Advanced Squad Leader and Starfleet Battles. So, you know, complicated games have never been a problem for me. The difference is those games were structured in a very well organized manner, and were easy to keep track of. You know, um, as opposed to I think third edition kind of turned into kind of a mess, a disorganized mess after a while. especially after a certain point, it really just got overwhelming for a game master. But that's kind of my 2 cents about like positives and negatives on third edition. Do you guys have any say about that? Like, did you all have any positives or negatives or any thoughts at all on third edition?
I think it got a little bit better with 3.5. They tried to. There was a good fix there that they didn't fix everything, but they fixed enough that it became a much better system. I never hated third. It's funny you talk about the whole edition war thing, and
Yeah.
it's just funny. I look back on it now, and I wish I could go back in time and look at those guys and say, "You think third edition is bad? Give it time."
Well, I think they realize that now, because what's shocking,
Yeah.
which why I'm even like wanted to do this episode, is because it's been kind of shocking to me lately, because a lot of the old school community is kind of embracing third edition now, or if they're not,
Yeah, it's funny.
if they're not embracing it, they're just kind of mildly accepting it, at least, right?
It's like, well, third edition wasn't so bad.
But-
I guess we could include it when we talk about old school stuff.
Right, but like 10 years ago, even, or even less than that, really, they were still up in arms about it,
Oh, yeah.
and it's kind of funny to see. I mean, there's still some guys that that still hate it, vilely hate it, but
It's funny.
Yeah.
There's a forum called dragonsfoot.org.
Oh, yeah.
They've been around for quite a while, and some of the old school, like Frank Menser, Gary Gygax, and many others have been on there. And I remember even after the edition wars kind of died down, they still had rules in the forum that you were not allowed to talk about third edition.
Oh, I remember.
You were forbidden.
Yeah, I remember.
And they even went so far as to create an acronym for the edition that shall not be named.
Right,
They had a
remember.
They would type it out instead of saying the name. I mean, it was ridiculous for a long time.
Yeah, what's the other ironic part is, and actually I think this was the greatest thing that came out of the D20 era of third edition, was the open gaming license. Because ironically, that's kind of what brought
They regret it now, though.
Yeah, they do regret it, and it is kind of odd, isn't it, that they did that. It's probably
It's the only reason Pathfinders, did as well as they did, is because of the OGL.
yeah, absolutely.
Without that,
It's the old
Pathfinder wouldn't exist.
love-hate relationship too. It's like, I'm so glad we did this, but man, did it bite us in the ass.
Well, I think I understand why they did it. They did it because it basically was free advertisement for them, right?
There's a video out there of how it came about.
Yeah, there
and
is.
it may
Yeah.
not be what you think it is, but yeah, it got. I think from what the video showed, it was like it slipped under the radar. I think there were some people that probably, if they'd have known what it really was, they wouldn't have allowed it. And there was a couple of people that, if I remember right from the video, that were instrumental in getting it put through.
Yeah. Well,
And once it was through, it was too late, and they were just, it's like, oh shit, what did we do?
no, well, see, it was, Peter Atkinson was one of those guys. Well, I think
Wasn't there a woman involved too? I thought there was a woman that was involved in some of that.
it might have been, but I think it was Jonathan Tweet, again, who was part of the third edition development team, and I want to say Skip Williams were the ones that kind of
The name sounds familiar. Yeah.
They wanted to kind of push this idea of the open gaming license, and Peter Atkinson was kind of on the fence about it, but he jumped on board with it too. And everything I've read about it, their whole scheme behind it was basically, we're going to have a bunch more product out that will basically advertise our game, and we don't have to make it, right? Other people will make it for us.
Well, TSR tried to do a similar thing like that back in the 80s. If you remember all the third-party modules that were floating around at the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's some good ones out there, and there's some out there that are absolute trash.
Right. Well,
but yeah, they were doing the same thing.
Well, even way back when, at the very beginning, they, Judges Guild, right? That's
right.
That's what Judges Guild was doing.
But then they didn't have to deal with licensing it out to them. They just put it out there to where they didn't have to deal with it anymore.
Right. But
they didn't have to test it either. So if it stunk, it wasn't their fault.
Right. It didn't come back on them, really.
Right.
But at the same time, in order to use most of that material, you had to have their game. You had to have D&D, right? For most of it. I mean, obviously you had like other spin-off games. I mean, there was D20. It was D20 Mania, in the early 2000s, and it got a little ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah.
But one of
There's some crazy games out there under the D20 license, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. But one of the ironic parts was that's kind of what revived the old school community too, right? Was because of the open gaming license. You had all these retro clones started popping up all of a sudden. And I can't remember the first one that came around. It was probably Osric, right? That was probably the first one. But you had Labyrinth Lord and Basic Fantasy, Castles and Crusades, and now it's just it's still going. But I think that really, even though there was already people that were there, you still had an old school community. I think that really bolstered our community of old school gamers. Was the open gaming license because of that? People really got curious about. All of a sudden, it became kind of more accessible and available, right?
Well, again, when you see a module that's based on the second edition version of that, makes people go back and look at that and be like, well, I like this. What else was like this?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that was probably the greatest thing to come out of third edition D&D and everything. But I think the worst thing was that it created a massive chasm in the D&D community, a split that seems to have healed up a little bit, but not really. And ever since then, every edition they've come out with since has just created a bigger rift.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
They keep coming up with a new edition. We don't need a new edition.
Yeah, we don't. And so then we're gonna move on to fourth edition. And I think this was the biggest rift of them all.
Yeah.
Well, when you have fourth edition and then you have a whole other company sprout up because of the people that hated fourth edition, yeah, it's going to cause a huge rift.
Yeah. And ironically, that's really, I think, when they started to regret having the open gaming license, right? Because fourth edition came out, and fourth edition D&D, for those that hadn't played it, don't play it, because it's not D&D, in my opinion. It's a totally different game, and
it's basically a tabletop board game.
It is.
It's a computer game. Is what they were trying to go for. You could see it. You can feel it. The whole,
yeah, there's definitely MMO elements into it.
Yeah, you get these things like energy surges and stuff like that. They even tried to change the character classes. They tried to make them sound more like playing World of Warcraft or something like that. Which was nothing wrong. I played World of Warcraft myself. It's just I didn't want to mix the two. I liked them for different reasons.
Yeah.
And when they tried to inject it into a role playing game, I really reared back. I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, third edition's one thing, but what is this? It's like,
well, it wouldn't be so bad if they injected it into a role-playing game, but why do you take one of the most popular role-playing games of all time and try to make it into something else?
Yeah, there's a number of computer games out there that uses the fourth edition rules, and they work just fine. So I mean, it's not the rules per se that I hate. It's that
it's not D&D.
They went so far off from the original rules that it's not like playing a role-playing game anymore. It really isn't. I mean, and there's so many different ways you could go with that. And some people did with I think it's Neverwinter, the MMO right now. I think is it still used fourth, or did they move the fifth? I think they moved the fifth.
Oh, I have no idea.
No
I didn't
clue.
even did they have? I didn't know they had any computer games under the fourth edition license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Neverwinter was the first.
Okay.
I don't know if D&D Online. I think they're still third.
Yeah, it was third.
Maybe they fourth. Yeah. So or 3.5 at this point because they added all the extra stuff.
I think really 3.0 and 3.5 we could really just roll into one edition at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And there was another game that failed financially that I think it was using fourth edition rules, and it was called Sword Coast Legends.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was,
Yep. That's right.
It was trying to be another Neverwinter Nights,
Was
which that was a very successful game, but this one it bombed.
it was horrible. Yeah, I played it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I own it, unfortunately.
I played the demo. I was kind of excited when it was coming out. You know, any D&D computer game I'm all about, but it was real shit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one uses 4th edition rules too.
But I've always been kind of curious. I think we all kind of probably get the idea of why 4th edition came around. And I'd like to see the numbers on the sales because I feel like it had to do something with the sales of 3.5. I feel like it was falling off really drastically.
It's not completely unsuccessful.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers. It's not a completely hated game. There is a following out there of 4th edition.
Oh,
of
I know
people-
there is.
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one friend that bought every single book of. We wouldn't play a single game of 4th edition, but he purchased every single book as it came out.
Yeah, there were a lot of fans and still are.
Yeah.
And it definitely there were a lot of people that got into the hobby because of it for better or worse. But I'm just talking about the sales, their motivation for creating 4th edition, I think had a lot to do with, and I know a little bit behind it. I know that at the time, book sales in general were just plummeting, you know, and I don't know for certain. I can't back this up, but I'm pretty certain that probably D&D sales were really taking a hit. And so, and MMOs were obviously, and we all know that it was at the height, right? It was in its prime in, when was that? 2008 when 4th edition came out. And
I believe it's 2008.
yeah, and I think it was 2006 when they were first like announced they were doing 4th edition. And that was definitely, you know, MMOs were all the rage. World of Warcraft was taking the world by
Well, a
storm.
lot of what I saw the problem was as well is there was a lot of empty promises that was made as well.
Yeah.
There was that
Yeah.
whole online thing that they were trying to do. They were going to do an online community. They were going to have DM tools that were all going to be part of the internet and part of the computer stuff that you could do.
Right.
And they didn't deliver on any of it. So that soured a lot of people into.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I remember all that. And I think they kind of dabbled in that when it first came out. And it just kind of they just kind of dropped it all. And even
Yeah, they showed some test footage stuff with some stuff they were doing. I remember
Yeah.
keeping up with it. That was curious. You know, I wanted to see something like that come about, but it was a lot of empty promises.
And I think they
Well,
also, I didn't mean to cut you off, Chase. But
You're
I
fine.
think they also kind of deceived us in the development of 4th edition because it's
Yeah, that's where I was
okay,
going
yeah,
to.
like when I was looking at the previews and stuff, it looked pretty good. Like it wasn't really what they said it was, right? When it went like the first like play test and stuff. Or I guess they weren't play tests, but they were giving you like early, yeah, they were like early previews, and did not look like the same game that I got when I got the book, you know.
It felt like a decision was made
Yeah.
midstream and they changed gears. Yeah.
Well, not so much that but it was also that they didn't tell anyone that they were changing the gears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
That goes along with the broken promises. Yeah. So
But again, you know, they really shot themselves in the foot with that one. I think it was probably the blackest stain in D&D history.
I think that's why 5th edition came along so quick.
Oh,
they realized that they screwed up.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. And of course, Pathfinder kind of took the reins there for a long time because it was, you know, like a lot of the 3rd edition play. It was kind of funny because all of a sudden the 3rd edition players were feeling the same hate that the old AD&D players were feeling, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it was kind of funny to see because all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, that damn 4th edition, you know, the edition that shall not be named," you know. It was, it's like, well, now you kind of know how AD&D players felt because, you know, even though 4th edition was far worse, it still was the same kind of experience. I think, you know, such a drastic change, and of course, you know, they shot themselves in the foot twice because they had the open gaming license and Pathfinder kind of took over the reins. And I think they probably rapidly started working on 5th edition, not too far after, right? Um, and another thing, like I've always kind of want to wax theoretical with everybody here. So let's say you were put in the third edition on the third edition team, and they were like, "We want a new version of Dungeons and Dragons. Um, we want a fresh coat of paint on Dungeons and Dragons." And we'll go one at a time here, and I'll let Mike start since he's the guest of honor. What would you have done differently, or what would you have done, period, with third edition D&D?
Well, I don't think it needs new rules. I think the rules are fine. I think it streamline a few things, add in some optional stuff, like kind of like what second edition was going with. But I think resources. I think especially moving into the 21st century, I think things should have moved more toward computer type stuff, because that's where a lot of these people were wanting. I mean, you got the VR technology now. Computers are really powerful now. I think there's a lot of ground not being covered there. I mean, especially with VR, it's not quite where it needs to be yet. I mean, it's pretty taxing on some computers, but it's coming around to where I think there's a lot of digital stuff that they could do there.
Yeah.
And still make, like any company, they want to make money. It's not about, satisfying everybody. It's about making money, but at the same time, you got to satisfy these people if you're going to make the money. And I think just throwing out more editions is splitting the community. And we've seen that happen over and over again. So I don't think it's about making new rules. We could take the rules, because third edition rules really is not that different from all the D&D before it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's not. There's stuff thrown on top of what rules were already there. That's all they've done. Fourth edition was a whole new rule set, and you see where that got them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fifth edition, they're trying to go back a little bit to the roots, and that's what I agree with.
Yeah,
and
they are,
and it's helped.
They are a little bit, but I don't feel like they went far back enough.
Not enough.
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Well, again, you got to try to not alienate all those people you picked up with fourth
edition. Well, they
edition.
did, though.
Right.
That's the erratic part. Again, here we go. You split the community again. Because the fourth edition players don't like fifth edition.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the problem. And if they announce tomorrow they're going to make a sixth edition, all they're going to do is they're going to divide the player base again.
Yep.
And that's why they're not making as much money as they could. That's why D&D is not as popular as it used to be. Or I that's not fair to say that. I mean, it is. I mean, the name itself, most people have heard of. So I mean, the popularity is there. But I'm talking about getting people at a table to play. You've created too many choices. And that in itself can create a bigger problem than anything. Is like, what do we play? It's like, well, Timmy over here, he likes fourth edition. Well, Ron likes, third edition. Well, he likes first edition.
Right.
You can't satisfy everybody anymore because you got too many choices. So, it needs to be, condensed a little bit down to, one set of rules here, and let's do that. GURPS was a good example of that, where they tried to do that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they went a little overboard, but that was the whole idea they were trying to do, was they had one rule set, and then they were just going to add on these different worlds. You could play World War II, you could play future, past, present, didn't matter.
Yeah.
They had a game for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they even had one called Bunnies and Burrows, where you could play a role play of being a rabbit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that crazy, but it still was the same rule set.
Yeah.
So that, you whatever genre you wanted to go to, you didn't have to learn a whole new rule set to play it.
Well,
it was already learned. It was already there.
I think, Mike, we've talked about this before, me and you, is TSR tried that back in the day with the color code system?
The color charts, I had some conversations with Kimber Eastland about that. If anybody doesn't know who he is, he was a writer for TSR back in the day. He wrote some of the things for some modules for Gamma World. He did some stuff for Star Frontiers. In fact, he told me that the color chart for Star Frontiers, he's the one that edited that to fit that game. And he liked that system. He said that's what he told me that they were trying to go for with that, is D&D, or TSR, not D&D, but TSR wanted to put a one rule system for all these games. And that third edition Gamble World used the color charts, the Marvel superheroes, the Conan game, Star Frontiers.
Yeah.
And it's a good system.
It's really good.
I don't think I don't think a lot of people realize it, but it's a percentile based system.
Yeah.
Like Rollmaster. You know, so it's not a D20 anymore. It's a D100 system, and those are good systems
They were.
because your percentages are a lot wider and more broad based, and it's, you know, but it had a simplistic look to it and a feel, and I think that's what the people, you know, turned away from it and didn't give it enough of a chance.
Yeah.
I think if they'd give it more of a chance, they'd realize it's actually a pretty good system.
Yeah, it was really
It could
good.
have been tweaked as well. You know, yeah, and there's some tweaking that could have been done to make it a little bit better. But I think it was just it flew under a lot of people's radar, is what I think.
Yeah,
And I think it could have been better.
especially I thought that was a great system. I love the all of those are good. My favorite out of that was probably the Marvel superheroes. I think that's probably one of the
It worked perfect for that. Yeah, that's one of the best Marvel games out there.
Yeah.
It just fit. It's like it was tailor made for that system.
Yeah, because with superheroes, it's almost impossible to stat like certain superhero abilities. But the thing is,
But they did.
They did. Well, the reason you could is because it used a chart, right? And so when you use a chart,
and they even used the terminology. So, like, you know, the Amazing Spider-Man had an amazing strength.
right?
I mean,
and you know, they had abilities like that where it went all the way up till. I mean, it just was almost infinite, right?
There was infinite,
Yeah,
like Shift 1000 or Shift X or something like that was infinite.
Yeah, and that was a crazy good game.
It is, yeah, it's still around. In fact, if I think it's still available for free download.
It is, yeah,
because and without any copyright. I mean, you won't get in trouble for it.
Yeah, actually, I'll post a link to that in the description of the YouTube video for everybody to check out. If they've never checked out the original TSR Marvel Superheroes, need to go fucking check it out because, it's one of my favorite role-playing games of all time. And
you can do the same for Star Frontiers. There's a website called starfrontiers.com where they can legally, and you can download all the modules and books for it as well.
That's right. I forgot about that. And
it's legal, so you won't get in trouble.
Yeah. And Star Frontiers, that was another really good one.
It was,
even though I never have gotten to play it, I love the
hit me up sometime.
Yeah. We need to get a game of Star Frontiers going. I know Chase, you've played Marvel Superheroes, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Dave, did you ever play any of those games?
Played Marvel Superheroes as a couple of sessions back in the mid-90s.
Yeah. What did you guys think of it?
You know, since it was just a few sessions and so much of it was just abstracted by the guy running the game, I mean, I had a positive experience with it, but I just wasn't familiar with the mechanics enough to really be able to give a good opinion.
Yeah. I need to do actually we're gonna do that. We need to do a couple, maybe a one shot or a little mini campaign and stream it on the channel of Marvel Superheroes and maybe some of the other games because I fucking love Gamma World too. It's one of my favorite role playing games. And 3rd edition Gamma World, which used that system, was probably the cream of the crop of Gamma World, in my opinion.
Once they fixed it.
Yeah. They it was a little loose to begin with, but
well, what happened is it was rushed out.
Yeah.
They put it out too fast, and most of the rules were missing.
Yeah.
And they had to go and do a booklet, an errata booklet to fix all the errors, and they gave it out for free.
Right.
You just had to write into to TSR at the time, and they would send you the book for free, and it had all the missing rules. It was kind of funny that happened. Once you had the missing rules, though, it turned into a really good game. There was no classes.
Yeah.
They had ranks, kind of like levels, but you weren't a class. You chose what race you wanted to be. You got your abilities rolled out, and you played. That was it.
Yeah, Gamma World's
I liked that.
It's stupid fun.
It is.
Yeah, I love Gamma World, Marvel Superheroes. And they tried it again in the 90s. I don't think a lot of people remember this. I remember it because I bought into it. Was the
4th edition?
No, the Amazing Engine system.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a generic role-playing system. TSR tried their hand at it again. I don't remember what year that was. It was around the time I got into gaming, so it must have been in the mid-90s or so. And again, it was like a very simple universal role-playing system. And they came out with they basically tried to do the GURPS thing. And they had like one little rule book. There was like the core rules. and they had all these world books. And actually, they had some really interesting ideas. They had like a Victorian fantasy one, and they had a science fiction one. I think they brought back Metamorphosis Alpha, right? And yeah, so they had a couple different systems, and it just did not catch on at all. And it's one of those things that got lost to time. And to be honest
It
with
was
you,
bad timing.
yeah, it probably was. Because I mean, at that time, if you wanted to play a universal role playing system, you were probably playing GURPS, right? And GURPS was a really solid system. And hell, Jesus Christ, if you never looked at all the GURPS books they have, they have a GURPS book for everything.
Crazy.
Yeah, literally everything,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I'm not kidding about the bunnies and burrows. There really is a supplement. That's an original game from 1976, actually created by somebody else.
I remember that.
Yeah, and GURPS redid it in their little system. There's in GURPS there's World War II books out there. There's Conan. There's Cthulhu. There's there's everything. It's and the way it's set up as well. You can even make up your own.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, we used to play GURPS a lot back in the day, and a lot of times, that's what we would do. We would, if we wanted to do some kind of weird, wacky, crazy idea, so something we saw in a movie or whatever. Well, the automatic answer was, oh, we'll just use GURPS, right?
And Steve Jackson had a good idea there, that's for sure.
Steve Jackson had a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, he did.
But that
Car Wars for one.
Yeah, Car Wars, and we could definitely talk about Car Wars if you want, Mike, because I'm a big Car Wars fan too. Yeah, I think that's kind of a forgotten game as well.
No, actually, they got a Kickstarter for a 6th edition right now.
Do they?
Yeah,
I didn't even know that. I don't hear anything about Car Wars anymore.
He still has his website up. He has a store on there called Warehouse 23 where you can buy a lot of his old games and the new stuff.
Well, I know that, but I would be hard pressed to find anybody to play Car Wars with me anymore. And I
have a Facebook group with a bunch of people that would might disagree with you.
Yeah, no, I know there's a diehard community for it. I'm part of your group, and actually, I'll post that group in the description as well because I think it's awesome. I love Car Wars. It's a great game. It's a classic. If you've never played Car Wars, you need to go play it.
Yeah, it started out as mostly as a tactical war game, using a grid system and stuff and counters. There's also a rule set where you can use Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars if you want. If you go on YouTube, there's a bunch of people out there that show you how to. You take your Hot Wheels car, you take it apart, sand it down, paint it back up, and put guns and stuff on it. Make Car Wars stuff out of it. But it'll scale up as high as Revell models and stuff like the monogram models if you want to go that far.
Oh yeah. And
now with GURPS, that's the story behind GURPS. The first GURPS book ever produced was Auto Duel for Car Wars. It's where they were going to do role playing for Car Wars.
Oh, was that
the first one? It just didn't take as well. That was the first one.
Auto Duel. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a good book, but I didn't care. It changed too much of the original Car Wars rules, and it wasn't so much a tactical war game anymore, and I didn't like that. So I didn't use it myself, and I created my own role playing system for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I got Car Wars when I was a kid, I got the original box set, and we automatically, without even thinking, I just upscaled it to Hot Wheels. And that's what we did. I just made my own templates, and we made, of course, I'm a miniature gamer and a war gamer, so I was already making terrain and shit. So I just made an arena out of foam, and we used Hot Wheels, and I would paint everybody's Hot Wheels. And, we played 40K and shit at the time, so we put 40K guns on them. And it was a blast. And I would love to play some Car Wars again. I haven't played it. And I don't know, man, it's probably been 20 years since I've been able to talk anybody into playing Car Wars with me.
There's a little game program some people may have heard of. It's called Tabletop Simulator on Steam. I created a mod for Car Wars on there. I need to put a better vehicle sheet on there, but for the original Pocket Box version from the early 80s, It's just if you'd opened up the box back then, that's what I put in there. All the cars, the counters, all the rule book is there and stuff, because it's a free download, so it's not copyright infringement. But you can play the game there. I need to put up a better vehicle sheet on there. It's like maybe a PDF in there or something that's fillable. It's a little easier to use than what I've got in there now. But everything's there to play the game. So
yeah, I've seen your mod. It's really well done. It's awesome.
Because we game our Sunday night game with Tabletop Simulator, so we definitely try to get as much use out of that as we can.
Yeah, I've been using that for 5 years now.
Yeah, I'm a big Tabletop Simulator fan, a big advocate of it. Yeah, and actually, it was you, Mike, that turned me on to it. Because I saw it a few years ago when it came out, and I didn't think too much about it. Because
it came out in 2015.
Yeah, and there just wasn't, there wasn't much available for it. But
they are still in the early stages. I bought it pretty early on. I saw where they were going with it, and I had already put some thoughts in my own head about what I wanted to do, and like the PDF thing that just came out just last summer.
Right.
Being able to use PDFs in the game now, and everybody was really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's an awesome program, and anybody that games remotely, I think it's probably the best tool to do that with.
No subscriptions, and it's actually pretty easy to use.
It is, and it's limitless. Like you can do anything with it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
It
worked great for the chainmail game.
Yeah, me and Dave played some chainmail. Which, by the way, Dave, we need to do some more chainmail. We need to stream that on the channel.
Yeah, I mean that's part
'Cause
about
that was
it.
a
I
lot
mean,
of
it just
fun.
makes so many of these games, especially like you mentioned, not being able to play Car Wars is the first thing that came to my mind. So I was shocked to hear, Mike, that you're doing Car Wars on Tabletop Simulator. That's great.
BattleTech
God,
too.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Star Frontiers. I got a number of games that I play on there, and we had a campaign for a while through with BECMI and the Mystara world. It's actually still going on, but it's on pause right now. But it was all through tabletop as well, and it saves everything for me. I mean, we haven't touched it in probably 2 years, but it's all still sitting there.
Yeah, that's the great thing about it. You can save it, leave it there, and come back to it whenever you want. So, and the other thing I like about it is you can play a lot of games. Well, you can play stuff like Car Wars, which again, I can't talk anybody locally into playing Car Wars with me. But I could probably talk somebody into doing it remotely with me. You know what I mean? And we can,
Yeah, tabletop goes on sale a lot of times. It's normally 20, but you can catch it on sale for 10 a lot of times. And $10 is not a big, especially when you consider. I don't want to name any of the others and for trash talking them or nothing like that. But there's some others out there that they want a subscription fee for their stuff, but it's also not very friendly to use, especially if you want to put an old game in there. Somebody wants to play the original Boot Hill from 1975. Trying to put it in some of these other systems, it's almost impossible.
It is.
With Tabletop Simulator, no, it's very easy.
Yeah, and you couldn't play like Car Wars,
No.
On roll,
because you need that map.
Yeah, or you can't play BattleTech or whatever. But yeah, it's an awesome program. Yeah, when you do some Car Wars on here too, talk you into it one night when you're free, Mike, and we'll all throw down a big Car Wars game.
Well, I'll have to tell some of the guys in the Facebook group too, because a number of them in there were wanting to start something as well. Because I showed them the mod I made for Steam, and they're all like, "Oh, I want to get on that too. Maybe we could start up a game or something."
Oh, it'd be cool is do like a campaign. We do like a auto duel league. you
Absolutely,
you could game master. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you almost don't need a game master sometimes. And if you do role playing, I guess with Car Wars you would. But if you just do the tactical part, you don't even really need a referee.
You don't need a referee, but the role playing part can be really fun though. But even for that, you don't really need a referee.
Well, the role playing rules that I made up for it are actually it's why I could never make money off of it. Is it's a combination of the original Car Wars skill set rules in there,
right?
And I chopped in some of the MechWarrior, the first edition MechWarrior combat rules, and I put it in there, and it actually fit really well.
Oh yeah,
I think I was telling you this, Cody, the other day. At a couple of friends of mine, we were back in the day, we were playing it using that system, and we had a racetrack going on. We were all racing Formula One cars around a big old track I'd put together
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
one guy, he came around this corner and hit some debris and missed his handling roll, and he was probably traveling 150, 160 miles an hour, and just plowed his car into the railing and just destroyed everything. But using the MechWarrior First Edition combat rules, he lost an eye. You know, he perforated a spleen or something like that. Ripped his foot off. I mean, it was cool little damage like that. I know it sounds horrible, but I mean that's what you're doing 160 miles an hour around a corner. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was very realistic and immersive that way, and it worked. You know, and it works pretty well with the skill sets as well, because you used some abilities. You got like body,
right,
dexterity, stuff like that with the old MechWarrior rules, and it fit perfectly with the skills. So I liked it.
Oh yeah, yeah. You got to let me look at those your rules conversion there. I'd be really interested to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a hacked up of already rules that are out there, so I can only use it just on a personal basis. But yeah.
Oh well, sure, but I mean, you can pass it out to people for as long as you're not selling it. You know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people do that already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. Well, what else do we want to talk about this evening, gentlemen?
Well, I mean, you talk about like the new edition of that's coming out on Kickstarter. That's example of maybe a good way to do a new edition.
Yeah, it could. Yeah.
Oh, the 6th edition
Of something
Car Wars?
Well, I mean, just example of, we talk about edition wars, but you sit there with that new stuff coming out, and there's not going to be that much hate for people playing the new edition.
No.
It's not,
politicized.
Yeah, there's not a split every time a new edition of everything comes out, because not every edition change is a bad one.
No, well, and I think
Gamble World's on their 7th edition, so yeah, I don't understand why the hate that came around with D&D.
It's weird. I do. Again, I think it comes from how much they changed it. Like Car Wars, they've changed it.
You should see 7th. You should see 7th edition Gamble World.
Oh, I don't even know.
It's so different.
Are you talking about the one with the cards and shit?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. No. No. It's basically 4th edition.
But that's what I'm saying. There's no hate there though. It's like nobody cares. It's weird. But with D&D,
it's like
people are
Champions is on their 6th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. The difference here.
It's like with the edition wars with D&D. I swear to God, if it had this not been online, if all these people would have been in a room, I think half the people would be dead.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was that bad.
It was. But again, I think
I
think the difference here is, games like, Car Wars, Hero System, great example. Well, like the Hero System, they'd never really changed that much. It's basically the same damn game it was back in 1980, whatever. Even I think one of the best examples we were talking about earlier is BattleTech. Fucking BattleTech hasn't changed since 1984. It's still the same damn game, basically.
There has been controversy off and on with it, though.
There is controversy, but it's more of like
with the lambs. There was some controversy with lambs because they went back and forth with them. When one edition they took them out, another edition they put them back in. Because there was an overpowered thing or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a
lot of people hate the clans, by the way.
Yeah. But there's people that just play without the clans. They just play 30, 25 or whatever. But it's still the core game, right? And like even those people that hate those things, they never quit playing BattleTech because the game is still essentially the same even today. Like
not all of it.
Yeah.
There is one in there. Was it Alpha Strike? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, that went way off the deep end a little bit. But now, again, there's people that don't like it, but there wasn't the hatred, like what you see with D&D when it went 2nd to 3rd, 3rd to 4th, 4th to 5th. There's all this hatred that flies around, especially with the first edition wars there. Granted, over the years, BattleTech has changed off and on with all its stuff, and the Alpha Strike was a big, major change. And then the clans back, what was it, like the early 90s when the clans came out or something like that, when they started doing that?
Yeah.
And there was people that didn't like it, but there wasn't the hatred. Nobody tried to kill each other over it. It's weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There was definitely some hate through the years of BattleTech, But at the end of the day, like I every BattleTech fan I know, you know, they might grumble about certain things like the Jihad or the Dark Age or the clans.
That's another hated one, yeah.
But
The Dark Age.
at the end
Forgot
of the
about that one.
at the end of the day, they never quit playing BattleTech. They still love it.
No,
And
no, and there's not a lot of attacks on the people that do play it. That's
Right.
the other thing that's weird
Yeah.
with D&D is a lot of people attack each other over this stuff, and it's crazy. You know, it's you know, that's not necessary.
Yeah. I think another one that's actually really crazy to me. I still can't wrap my head around it. And I think everybody's familiar with the Palladium system, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Palladium games. I know Dave is, especially because he kind of got his feet wet with Palladium. The weird thing about Palladium is it's literally the exact same
Yeah,
game.
they just keep adding
Like,
on
it
to it.
has-
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. And people still eat that shit up. And it just amazes me because we're talking.
it's a fun system.
It is. It's cool, but it's like it's
Yeah.
really, really dated. And
Yes,
and it's crazy that, you know, I you still go to all the big even at Gen Con, whatever, and there's still people in like all these hordes of people lined at their booth to buy this game that's essentially the same exact damn game from the 80s. So back to what you're saying, Mike, like just imagine, like, would there still be that kind of love for, say, like AD&D, you know, if they just kept it, you know?
well, you're missing one there. The BECMI system has never changed, and it comes off the original OD&D of the early 70s.
Oh,
It's kind of
sure.
where
Yeah.
you know, and there was the RC, the Rule Cyclopedia, in the early 90s that came out, but it really wasn't that much different. There was a few clarifications, but for the most part, it was still the same game.
It was.
And it's
Yeah.
never changed either, but there's still a very strong follow. You go on Facebook and look up any of the BECMI stuff. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there with thousands of followers.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, so
yeah.
it's never died.
Yeah.
But what's funny about that is when I played it when I when I was a kid, it's funny. I was almost the nerd of the nerds because everybody was always saying, you know, oh, that's for kids. You know, you're supposed to graduate to AD&D now. You need to be playing this game. It's like, well, I don't want to. I want to play this. I was like, well, then you're a nerd. It's like, you know, so I got ostracized by the people that were, you know, being called names by other people because I wasn't playing the right D&D. It was funny.
That is kind of funny. Yeah. Because I wasn't around at that time, but I do. Well, I guess I kind of was because I basic D&D, you know, was still floating around. BECMI was still kind of floating around even when I got into it.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was still kind of looked down upon as this kind of like kids game. It was like, no, that's what you get into when you're first starting off. And if you want to really play real D&D, it's AD&D. And I don't really, I guess that's how they were trying to market
No.
BX and BECMI. I'm not really sure. It's
No.
you know, it's
No, Frank told me once well, first of all, their whole reason for the split of those two games was because there was a lawsuit between Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax.
right. And
Now, the whole details, I don't know the details, but I just know that they didn't want to give him any more money.
Yeah.
So they made this thing called Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So he couldn't cash in on any of that.
Yeah, and
But they continued with the original D&D, which became BX,
Yeah.
which that was the Moldvay version.
right. And I don't
And
think a lot of people know that story.
Probably not.
That's actually I was telling somebody, might have been Chase the other day, you know, that
Yeah,
that,
it was me.
you know, that was a big reason, you know, AD&D
Mhm.
came along at all. The AD&D name was because of the lawsuit between, you know, Gary
Yeah.
and Dave, and they really did kind of oust Dave for there were a lot of good reasons.
There was faults on both sides.
Yeah, I mean there were faults on both sides. I'm not really gonna villainize or make anybody, you know.
Well, considering all those people are dead, you know, or the two main parties there are dead. Yeah, it's best just leave it alone at this point.
It really
I mean,
is.
It doesn't matter.
And it does matter, but yeah, I don't, you know, it's kind of like, you know, at this point,
It matters for history's sake, and that's about it, because
Right.
it doesn't affect anything that's going on now with the new D&D.
Yeah, nothing will change based
no,
on
but
it.
but I do think it's an important story. I do think I don't.
Oh, it is.
I don't think a lot of
Absolutely.
people realize that you know that's one of the main reasons the AD&D name came around. You know, is because
Have a lawsuit.
because of the lawsuit. And I mean, that wasn't the only reason. I think they would eventually
No.
codified. AD&D was also, there were other reasons. They wanted to codify D&D to begin with because it was spread all over the damn place. You had all those supplements, and they were poorly written and disorganized, and you had the strategic review and everything. Dragon Magazine was coming around, and you had shit all over the place, and they really did need to like codify it and make some sense of it.
Well, it's funny about BECMI that even then it was so, I got made fun of by the ones that were being made fun of for playing D&D. It was like this chain of command kind of thing, and I was at the bottom playing BECMI.
Yeah.
But BECMI actually sold a lot.
It did. Yeah.
Of editions in its day. I think Frank, last I saw, he quoted he thought somewhere around between 40 and 50 million copies back then.
Yeah.
And that's worldwide, and it was also translated into a number of languages.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean, that in itself, I think it was translated more language, I think, than AD&D, but I don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But I do know it was a well-received, and it made a lot of goddamn money for TSR. It was a very popular game, despite the aura around it of the stigmatism of playing it. It's like, oh, that's for kids. It's like, well, kind of, yes. So was AD&D. It all was, but it was like from kids on up. I mean, it was a lot of people that would play it.
Oh yeah.
And I just stuck with it, and I never stopped. And I don't play completely vanilla though. I have a lot of extra stuff that I've added onto it over the years and made it,
I think
different than it was.
I'm right there with you. It's always been one of my favorite editions of D&D. It was actually, believe it or not, it was the first edition that I bought for myself. Even though I had played like second edition first, the first one I bought for myself was BX, the Moldvay rules.
Moldvay,
yeah. And I bought them because,
which isn't that much different from Mincer's version.
Yeah, no,
he just elaborated on what was already there.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, it's pretty much the same. I kind of. The
best thing about Mincer's, and it's one of what everybody remembers, is that the beginning chapters of the Red Box, player's handbook.
Yeah.
It's got that little story in there where you play this little fighter, and he meets up with Alina and all this, and it is teaching you the story as it's telling us, teaching about the rules as you're, reading the story, and it just grabs you, pulls you into the story while you're learning this. And then I had that little solo adventure right after that where you went into this dungeon alone.
Oh yeah,
a little solo adventure that worked like a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah,
I
think it
that in itself was, it made it so easy for anybody to learn the game. If you weren't very savvy with numbers and stuff like that, read that first player's book, that first, like 10 pages.
Yeah.
And you'll know D&D in a nutshell right there.
Absolutely.
And it's so easy.
I still think it's probably the best introductory box set ever made for D&D.
Mincer, he really outdid himself on that one.
He did. Yeah. And it really got a lot of people into the hobby. I've talked to so many people that was their first version, and I think the other thing that was, and I'll always go back to this because this was something that really grabbed me in D&D was, I think one thing that really grabbed people with that one, with the BECMI, and especially the original red box set, was Larry Elmore's cover art. Oh my God. It's legendary, It's legendary.
Yeah, that man is a master at what he does. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
But not all of that was Elmore, though. There is some Parkinson in there as well.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just talking about the cover art. But the interior art. Oh yeah, there's Parkinson in there.
Well, it's both of it. It's both Parkinson and Elmore in there. I don't know if there's any of is it just them? I think it's just them two. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I have the book around here, but it's not near me.
I'd have to flip through it to remember all the artists there. I'm sure all the four horsemen, all four of them were involved in that.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure Easley and Caldwell were involved. I'm not 100%.
I don't think Caldwell did any of the original book. He did the Gazetteers from the Star. He did all of those covers.
Yeah, he did a lot of those.
He's talented as hell as well.
Oh my God, yeah. All four of those guys.
Had a fetish for high heels, but
yeah. And even the BX edition, like Earl Otis and Jeff D.
Mhm.
Oh my God, you know that Earl Otis cover on the original BX.
You talk about edition wars. There was another war that kind of happened. It didn't get ugly or nothing like that, but it was a big war between who was the prettier girl in the two editions. You had that Morgan. What the hell was her name?
Oh yeah.
And she was in the Moldvay version.
Right.
Then you had Alina that was in Mincer's.
Yeah.
And it was everybody back and forth about which one was the better one.
yeah. Morgan had, she had the big tatas, and you could just see like a little bit. It was getting a little nippy there in the chainmail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of
That
them
was
were
funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I think BECMI and BX, whatever you want to call it, basic D&D as I call it, is one of the most elegant versions of D&D. It's one of my favorites. I love to play it, and it's one of those additions that I definitely always try to push off on new players. I'm like, if you want to get started in D&D, this is where to start, like this. And
Yeah.
I've given people, let people borrow my
Well, it eases you in and tells a story at the same time. And everybody loves to be entertained. I mean, that's just we are by nature.
Yeah.
And the way, Frank Mincer, wrote that, it's exactly what's going on. You're reading the story and you're following along, and you're being entertained, but at the same time, it's throwing in, well, this is how you do this. So let's do this in the story. And through that whole thing, it's a very smooth transition. Anybody can learn the game by reading that. Anybody can. I don't care what you think of yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a very easy way to grasp the concept.
But it was just really well laid out, really well written, very elegant.
I think that's why it sold so many copies, is because people they liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. Chase Dave.
Not to mention that artwork.
Oh my God, yeah, the art alone would sell it for me. Chase, Dave, did you guys ever experience BECMI or BX?
I'm sure I've played it at some point or another.
Not till much later. So I was one of those guys that was playing D&D at the
I
time.
like it because the races and classes were combined. That was a turnoff for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. What were you saying, Dave? You said you didn't play it till later?
I still haven't even played it. So just when I started doing scholarship in the D&D game and an interest in studying mechanics is when I finally got my copy of BX and just the basic of the BECMI. So I don't have, the expert and companion of BECMI. I've only read the basic. But I just remember the time when I was playing AD&D. I was in grade school, and I remember this younger kid had his big old rule cyclopedia, and hands on my hips, acting all haughty. He's showing me his D&D game, and I'm like, "Oh, that's cute, kid. You're playing the baby version of D&D. I play AD&D."
Right.
Such a jerk. I wish I didn't have that kind of arrogance and ego. I just look back on it and shake my head. It's like I wish I could have just been better to the guy and just got into it or tried gaming it with him, because it probably would have. I think it would have been a lot of fun, because it's a fun system to read. I agree completely with what you and Mike had said about it.
Yeah,
it's got so many positives.
Yeah, I always I'd never thought of it as the kiddie version of D&D. Now the guys I play with always play with guys that were a little bit older than me, and when I played in middle school and was playing AD&D very heavy, the guys I played with, the dungeon master, he had all sorts of AD&D books, but one of the things he had was he had all the BECMI books. And I remember hanging out in his bedroom, and we're talking about computers and all this stuff, and I saw all his BECMI stuff, and I started flipping through them, and I was like, why aren't we playing this? I want to play this. This looks cool. And he was like, oh no, I got that when I was a kid. It's I could never talk any of those guys into playing with me. But like I said, I picked it up for myself, and the reason I picked it up is because it was cheap.
Right.
I bought it, I bought it secondhand at the game store, and it was like $10 for the basic and expert box set. And I was like, well, heck yeah, this is way cheaper than the AD&D books.
It did a great job of streamlining the rules. which I do like. Well, at least the ability scores. I won't say all the rules. I mean, we could nitpick the hell out of rules, but I love the way it streamlined ability scores. And as Mike said, though, the one thing I hated about it is I cannot stand race as a class. I get it for certain settings. If you're trying to drive the role play aspect, if you enjoy like the story and the role play aspect, and you want people to like embrace playing a race as, maybe like a culture or something, that's fine. However, outside of that, it drives me up the wall. But I love like the multi-class, like the fighter, like the AD&D of the OD&D, the AD&D, the AD&D second ed, like the, fighter thieves and fighter magic users and that kind of thing. I love that kind of flexibility with the character. And yeah, I know some people have mentioned that it's a little powerful and whatnot, but I mean, you've got the limited hit points. You get precious few hit points. The XP is so slow. Well, I mean, maybe not so slow.
Right.
Like maybe you're 1 or 2 levels behind if you're 2 classes, maybe 2 levels, maybe 3 at the most if you're 3 classes. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's got its drawbacks, but the flexibility was great. But other than that, I mean, fantastic system.
Yeah, I never had a problem with the races class thing. Always kind of liked it. I thought it was pretty. I mean, it's just a different flavor of D&D to me.
Right. It's just not my cup of tea. I can't stand it.
Yeah, I never had a issue with it at all, and I thought it worked quite well. It just kind of.
I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, are you a fan of it, Chase? I didn't know you were. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like races
Really?
classes.
Yeah, I don't think you've ever told me that. That's interesting. I like it too. I just think it's a different flavor of D&D. Sometimes I don't want that flavor. Sometimes I want I want a little bit different flavor, and I'll just do AD&D, or I'll do white box. White box is another flavor. And that's kind of how I like all the old school D&D, and I'll go from edition to edition. I don't think I really have a favorite one. It just always changes. Speaking of which, well, we know what Mike's favorite edition is, obviously.
Do you?
Well, it's I'm just going to take a guess here. BECMI.
Of Dungeon Dragons alone, yes.
Okay.
What's your favorite game system out of all? Like, what do you like? What's the one game that you just love to sit down and play all the time?
Oh, see, that's tougher because I'm one of those that I'm so influenced by things like music and movies and stuff that I don't know. You could ask me one day and it'll be one thing. Ask me another day, it'll be something else. I guess that's why I play so many different role playing games, because it's just my
sounds familiar, doesn't it, Cody?
Yeah, I'm kind of
it's hard to stick with just one. I don't. I have my favorites that I go back and forth with, but to nail one particular one down, I don't know if I could.
Well, name like your top 3, like you like you're always that always stick with you.
That would be BECMI, Car Wars, and probably BattleTech, the original stuff of all those, though.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, there you go.
And you all 3 of them have nothing to do with each other.
No, well, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I'm just a gamer, and I love games. And on even this channel, we're not just going to talk about D&D. We're going to go. Obviously, even tonight, we've gone all over the place. We've talked about Car Wars, BattleTech, Gamma World. I mean, we've gone all over the place, and
they have all influenced each other. I mean, Steve Jackson even worked for TSR for a short time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yep. So they all influence each other some way. I think it was really early on. I don't think it was worked very long, or maybe he was as a third party, but I knew he did. His name graces a few TSR products out there somewhere. I don't remember which one. You might ask Dwayne. He might know more than me. He knows all the names. I just know the games and the game systems. He knows all the names.
Yeah, Steve Jackson. I don't remember. He definitely did some work for TSR, and I can't remember off the top of my head what he was doing at the time.
Well, the first Car Wars was, I think, late 70s, and it was a Ziploc baggie with the rules and dice and a couple of counters in it.
Yeah, and he also did he did Ogre. That was another mini game. That was one of the first
Pyramid.
Yeah.
Illuminati.
Yeah. But Ogre was one of their like Ogre and
The
Car Wars.
Fantasy Trip, he did that one.
Oh yeah, Fantasy Trip, and of course that kind of was kind of the precursor to GURPS.
Yes.
So, yeah, Ogre that's a really good game as well. I always have a blast playing Ogre. And oddly enough, that's when they re-released it did really well. They kickstarted it, they re-released it, and
That's why it's still around.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's changed a whole lot either. I think it's very similar to what it was when it started.
yeah, it's the exact same game.
I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, it's the exact same game.
You were talking about the roots of wargaming, though. I forgot to mention in BECMI, because a lot of people don't go that far. Most people don't. They level up their characters, and once they hit about 10th level, they quit playing.
Yeah.
And we didn't do that when I was my group. We went all the way. It was a couple times we went all the way up to 36th
Nice.
level, and I even had a group one time where a couple people actually became immortals, and that's very difficult. But a lot of people they don't go past the expert book, and they don't realize how much information those books are not so much about rules as they are about optional rules and extra things to put in there.
Right.
Like in the companion book, there was, I don't think Menser did, I think somebody else created it, but there's the whole war machine, which is mass, combat battles, and it's very tactical and it's very war game-ish.
Yeah.
And you can do anywhere from 10 men fighting 10 men to 10 million men fighting 10 million men, and it's very easy to do.
Oh yeah.
And there was another version put out that came out in one of the modules that was made for BECMI that was called the Sea Machine.
Yep.
And it did the exact same thing using the same rules, only it was naval battles.
Oh really?
And really, really good system. Yeah.
I never heard of that one.
Very good. I forget which module it's in, or it was or a supplement. It was in one of those where it was the Sea Machine. You can look it up; you can probably find it.
Yeah,
but it's called the Sea Machine, and it's the exact same rules that War Machine uses, only it's tailored toward naval battles.
Yeah,
and it's really cool. And the master set had, and that's where the whole weapon mastery came in with BECMI,
right?
Which really changed the feel and the flavor, added a lot of new weapons to it, some more immersion and details to it.
Yeah.
And there's some number of supplements that have come out in the last 10 years. I forgot the guy's name, but he put out this manuscript. It's free. You don't have to buy it, but it's called the Mystaran Armory.
Yeah.
And he's added just about any kind of armor or weapon you can think of, and and incorporated it into the weapon mastery rules, and it's for BECMI.
Oh,
and
nice.
and he's even changed a few things with it as well to some of the some of the rules that didn't work with the original BECMI. He changed a little bit and made it work even better. It's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
I think it's available on our Facebook too in the file section. I think I put it in there.
Yeah,
it's just called the Mystaran Armory.
I will post that in the description as well. Because
he did a whole series.
Yeah.
He did magic. He did with arcane magic, divine magic. I think he's got some other stuff for immortals and some other stuff. He's got like 4 or 5 books out there. I think I'm pretty sure they're all free to download, but they're really good information out.
And those are on top of the just the standard BECMI rules, so they roll right into it.
Yeah, there are optional rules to be added to it and they add there's a long list of armor and weapons that he's added to the list, and he put them into the weapon mastery system as well. So you can use them that way. You can use them standard. He also made a system in there to where everything has hit points, so that your armor will now take damage when you're in battle, to where you're going to have to repair it or get a new one. Yeah, he went really all out with this. It's really a good read.
Have you tried implementing any of them into your game?
Oh yeah, the last couple of sessions that we've done, this last campaign I did, I used all of that, and everybody seemed to like it.
So when you're running your games now, do you still like to run them as Star, or do you have like homebrew worlds?
I mostly do Mystara, but I've changed so much about it. It's almost becoming a homebrew at this point.
So how about as a player? Do you still get any time to be one, or do you primarily just run games nowadays?
I get so much enjoyment at being a DM that I don't know. If anybody wanted me to be a player, I would. I think I could still do pretty good. It'd be weird though, because I'm so used to knowing everything and creating it that I think being behind the wall of everything would be kind of weird. but I'm not against it at all. No, I like being a player too.
So what about house rules? And you've been playing it for so long, and you've mentioned like with Mystara that you've changed a lot of it. But what about the actual system? Have you put any of your own spin on it?
In some of it, yeah. For a while, I would use first edition rules of AD&D, and I would add in a lot of the optional and handbook stuff of second edition, only because I wanted the first edition rules, but I wanted all the options that second edition offered. So I would mix and match a lot of stuff like that, or create my own stuff with BECMI. Funny you mentioned that. There is a somebody else had created it, but I like using it. But you were talking about not liking the races class thing. There is this this tool that I use that breaks all the classes in BECMI down into mathematical equations, basically. How does a fighter get from first level to second level? What makes all this possible? And so he broke it all down in the numbers. And what he found out is that everybody is balanced and just fine except for the magic user. Magic user is broken. So? And so with what he has as an ability and what he needs to get the first level doesn't match. It's off. So he fixed it. And that's what it's a little PDF thing I could throw out there for you guys to put anywhere you want as well. It's free. But he broke it all down and shows you how to fix it and how to create your own classes. So that's one thing I've done with BECMI is the original standard classes plus the extras that come in some of the gazetteers from Mystara. I've added extra classes on top of that. So I have a lot of my own custom stuff that's added in there for people that want to play something that's not part of the normal BECMI world. It's like if people want to play Rangers or something like that. Yeah, I could.
I think it's nice that you're
it's
doing
easy
that,
to make all that.
One thing that I've noticed is that it seems like the majority of gamers, it seems like to have a lot of options to them that are really spelled out. And so it sounds like you're giving a lot of opportunity for people, just to make choices and have options to kind of dial in what kind of character they want to play.
Well, as a DM, I've always tried to be, I see a lot of it, and even it's not just a new DM thing either. I knew DMs that were like this back in the day as well. Is a lot of times DMs will try to be competitive with the players, and that's not fair because the DM has all the cards on his side of the table. He can do pretty much whatever he wants. So it's not a fair competition, and it's not supposed to be a competition, in at least the way I see it. So I'm here to. I'm part entertainer, I'm narrator, I'm whatever they need to be. I'm their eyes, I'm their ears. So that's what I'm supposed to be. And when somebody comes to my table, I'm not going to force them to play something they don't want to play. So I'm not going to make them roll the race, or I'm not going to make them roll this, roll that. I mean, there's going to be some rolling because you want some randomness there. But for the most part, I want people to play what they want. They're coming to the table with something in their head. It's like, I want to be, the hero paladin, or I want to be, the moody ranger that's sneaking through the woods, or or I want to be the slutty sorceress, whatever.
Yep.
And so I'm going to let them do that. So and I'm going to try to cater to that a little bit and let them, create the character that they have come to the table in their head. Also, on top of that, I don't feel that it's just my game. It takes all of us to create this world. It takes all of us to play in it. So it's everybody's world. It's all of our games. So everybody has a say here.
Absolutely.
With of course the DM, having to put the hammer down once in a while to stamp out, the arguments and the rule thing. But other than that, it's everybody's game.
I like you described it. It's more like, it's their fantasy and you're here to facilitate it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason why I'm being the DM. I mean, if I wanted to be the hero, then I should be, step over to the player side. So
when you approach the game, that's another thing that we see a lot with the edition wars is, some people will say that, hey, it's not an acting trooper. It has to be played a certain way. But, the way you're talking, Mike, I mean, you're willing to adjust to what the players want. And I mean, it's kind of like that seems to be I almost kind of wish that you could have all of the editions of AD&D and just, a live and let live. It's too bad that they all just couldn't be out there. So that for the people that like the tactical, analytical, it's like, hey, go play 4th Ed. If you just like a very free form rulings, not rules, here's the classic AD&D. If you like, something, maybe with a little bit more added onto it, you've got the whole, Moldvay BECMI line. Just a lot of approaches. And piggybacking off of that, though, I was just kind of curious. do you put like a bit of a story into what you're doing, or is it more of like, do you approach it as just like, hey, this is a dungeon crawl and we're bean counting and the level, or do you kind of like have an overarching story or campaign that goes to your game?
Depends on the players. If it was a session I did a while back using BECMI, and most of a couple of the players were just hack and slash. That's all I wanted to do. So I'll cater to that a little bit. But my regular base of players, like I have right now for the BECMI version, and the I get a second edition game I run on Sundays in the Forgotten Realms, right out in the Neverwinter Woods right now, and that's very story oriented for the most part, because most of these guys, we got a couple of new players in there, and we have a couple of veterans as well. But the story is there, but they're more interested in kind of like just horsing around. Nobody's taking anything too serious, and so I'm fine with that. So I keep it light. That's why, and I kind of like those games sometimes because I improvise a lot of my games anyways on the fly, and with this one, I don't have to do a lot of preparation because they're not looking for anything detailed. One of my players doesn't like politics in his games, not real politics. I'm talking politics. We're not talking Trump or nothing like that. I'm just talking the politics of the world.
He wants to go adventure.
He doesn't want that either. Right. And with my other set of players in BECMI, they're more story driven. And so a lot of times we don't even roll dice. We could go 2 or 3 sessions without even rolling any dice because it's so story driven.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, it's called Nature's War. We got this whole thing going on with like the druids in Mystara, in the Karamikan area in particular. For whatever reason, they left, and there were no druids around anymore. So a number of clerics took up that position and called themselves nature priests. And for a while, they took control of that particular position. And now, while the druids have come back, the clerics that were taking that position don't want to give up their power. They want to stick right where they're at. Well, the druids are like, no, we're not going to have that. So there's this schism that's starting to happen here in Karamikos, and it's getting really, really, nasty. And even to the point to where the rangers who normally work with the druids have split as well. Now you have rangers on one side that are teaming up with the druids, and they have another one who I call the wardens, and they're teaming up with the clerics. So it's getting really heavy. It's a little bit of politics, but it's very heavily story driven. But that's because that's what they want.
That's really cool the way that you adjust between them both.
Yeah, me and David talk about this too, and I don't want to get too in depth to this tonight because I kind of like save it for another episode. Is approaches to running the game, and also like is there a right way to run a game? And I especially see this argument in the old school community, and this is something I want to reserve for a future episode. Though I don't want to get too deep. We're going.
I'll just say one thing on that respect is the right way to play is what's going to make your players happy. That's it.
Yeah, but
everything else doesn't matter. It's because it boils down to that.
Yeah.
If you're not making your players happy, they're not going to play.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have a game at that point. So the only real answer there is whatever your players want.
Right. I don't disagree with you. Well, gentlemen, we've almost gone 2 hours here, and we're getting pretty deep into some other topics. So I think we should wrap it up for the night. Mike, it's been great having you. Thanks for coming on, man.
Anytime.
Your insights are awesome. Anytime you want to come on future episodes, just let me know.
Sure.
Chase, Dave, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us again, Cody.
This has been the Grognard Grumblers. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. We are on Twitter, and we are now on Spotify, and lots of other streaming services for your listening pleasure. We will be, not only will we be doing this, the Grognard Grumbles podcast, but we'll also be streaming other games. Currently, we have a Dark Sun game going weekly. And we've got some other things in the works that we want to do. So look out for that. Again, thanks to Mike Rosso for coming on tonight. And gentlemen, anything else you have to say before we close out the evening?
Mike, I have to pick your ear later about your
Nope, I'm good. Have a
your
good
Druid
night.
campaign. I've only ever heard you talk about the Forgotten Realms AD&D game.
Yeah. There's actually a Facebook site that I put all the players in there. That's based on that, and I also have this other website called Obsidian Portal. Some of you may have seen it. I have it on there as well. Yeah, I can definitely. I love talking shop. So yeah, whenever you got some free time, just let me know. I'll
All right, I'll
fill
DM
you
you.
in. It's a fun campaign.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a great talk. And we will have another discussion next week. Next week, we're going to have John Silver on. And we're just kind of a preview of the next episode. We're going to be talking about the Satanic Panic,
Right.
which I think all of us had a little bit of. I was definitely affected by it. I've got some stories about
I was heavily affected by it.
Well, Mike, you're welcome to come on and talk to us about it if you want to.
Yeah, Jack Chicken.
Yeah, bring
in
your tracks.
particular.
Yeah. So that's kind of a preview for what the episode's going to be next week. But it was a really fun discussion tonight. And everybody have a good night.
Until next time.
Night, guys.
Thank you. Good night.